I didn't think you all were going to get so quiet so quickly. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is so great to see you all here this evening, to have so many guests with us this evening as we welcome you all in, as we welcome Shabbat in, as we celebrate our social action Shabbat tonight. Just a few reminders. If you have anything that reminds you that it's not Shabbat, like a phone, like a watch, anything like that, I'm going to ask you to turn it off or turn it to silent. Let yourself be able to focus. Let yourself be really present in the moment and be here and enjoy this service together. You know, I was thinking today, as the sun finally came out this afternoon, after like a couple days of it being really dreary and overcast, of like, I really need Shabbat this week. I don't know, anybody else feeling like that today? Yeah, right. Really needing Shabbat this week. So give yourself that gift of Shabbat. Give yourself that gift of this hour of allowing yourself to focus on you, to focus on relaxing, of rest and renewal, and beginning this time together. And so we begin our service this evening on page 11 with Ki Eshmera Shabbat. Ki Eshmera Shabbat El Yishmereni. Ki Eshmera Shabbat El Yishmereni. Oti leol me'ad beino uveini. It's my pleasure now to invite up Patricia Rosenman to lead us in our candle blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chalik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. We continue now on page 20 with the words of Lachado D. This psalm welcomes in, or this prayer, rather, welcomes in Shabbat. We are going to be singing verses 1 and verse 9. And on verse 9, or just before it, we will rise and face the entrance, as is our tradition to welcome in Shabbat. I guess it would help if I turned to the right page, huh? Right? turn now to page 28, our call to worship the Baruch Hu as we join together. Please be seated. We continue reading together at the bottom of page 31. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. We rise together as we turn to page 34 for the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. We continue now with chanting the Ve'ahavta on page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha Mishinantam levanecha v'dibartam bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lihiot lachem le'elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. We continue now on page 40, celebrating our crossing of the Red Sea, together with these words of Mi Chamocha. One of the most beautiful prayers that we have, and I think a prayer that perhaps we say in our own words, in our own time, is this prayer of Hashkivenu. And this version, some of the words can be found at the top of page 43. The other parts of it at the top are in the Hebrew on page 42. And this prayer asks God to protect us when we lie down, to shelter us beneath God's wings of peace, and to be there throughout the night as we sleep. From life's storms, love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. shelter from life's storms. On page 45. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. We continue now with our congregational Amidah, which begins on page 46. I invite you all to please rise. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu. Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'Konei HaKol, Vezocher chasdei avot v'imahot, umevi geula livnei v'neihem, leman shemo be'ahava, melech ozer umoshia umagen, baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah, atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye metim atarav lehoshia, mashiv haruach umorid hagashem. Mechakel chayim bechesed, mechaye metim berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verofech holim, umatir asurim. Umekayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha ba'al gevurot umido melech melech memit umechayeh umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman atah lehachayot metim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh hametim, atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukdoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated. We continue on page 55. Let's read this in the middle of the page together. Disturb us, Adonai, ruffle us from our complacency, make us dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quietude which arises from a shunning of the horror, the defeat, the bitterness, and the poverty, physical and spiritual, of humans. Shock us, Adonai, deny to us the false Shabbat, which gives us the delusions of satisfaction amid a world of war and hatred. Wake us, O God, and shake us from the sweet and sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears. Make us know that the border of the sanctuary is not the border of living, and the walls of your temples are not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality. Disturb us, O God, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Let it be a time to be stirred and spurred to action. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We continue now with our prayer for peace, Shalom Rav, which can be found on page 60. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. We take a few moments now for silent prayer and reflection using either the words of the pages in front of us or the words of our hearts. Shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru Amen. We come now to Seder Kriyat HaTorah, our Torah service. And part of the tradition of our Torah service is that we take the Torah out of the ark, which we will do momentarily, and we'll walk around with it. And traditionally what we would do is people might take their Siddur, their prayer book, or their talit and reach out to kiss it, and then kiss their lips. Because of COVID right now, we are not doing that. So we are asking you not to reach out, not to touch the Torah. We don't want people crowding around in any way that makes them feel uncomfortable. What I would say is that if you would like to do something, you're welcome to share an act of affection, however that might be, or an act of recognition as the Torah passes by. Please rise. Our Torah portion for this week is Tetzaveh, which builds upon last week's parsha of Truma, wherein we are commanded to build a tabernacle. God gave us instructions for how to build the tabernacle and how to decode it. In Tetzaveh, the children of Israel are commanded to bring pure olive oil to the Ner Tamid above the sanctuary. Aaron and his sons Nadav, Abihu, Eleazar, and Itamar are chosen to serve as priests and are later ordained in a 7-day ceremony. This is a long ordination. Mine was 3 hours. I thought that was long. And they wore special garments that God had instructed Moses to make for them. What is perhaps most interesting about this Torah portion is actually the very first verse, where the translation is, and you'll hear the Hebrew in a moment, "You shall further instruct the Israelites to bring you clear oil of beaten olives for lighting, for kindling lamps regularly." Now, on first glance, looking at the English, you would think, great, it's talking about the Ner Tamid, like the one that we have in our sanctuary, the one right there, our everlasting light. And indeed, this very verse is why all synagogues have a Ner Tamid in their sanctuary. However, right, we always have to have an however. If we look more closely at the verse and how the text is written, and in particular the trope, which is our system for chanting Torah, how the trope are attached to the words, and they tell us, actually, the way that we should be reading it is, "You shall further instruct the Israelites to bring you clear oil of beaten olives for lighting, for kindling lamps regularly." This command was not actually about having a Ner Tamid, but we should lahalot ner, to kindle lights, tamid, regularly. So what can we learn from this happy mistake? That sometimes the most beautiful traditions that we have come from beautiful mistakes that we make. If you would like to follow along in this week's Torah portion, you can find it in our Eitz Chaim commentary. That's the maroon books underneath your seats on page 503. Ta'amon Michal bat Shimonu Malka la'aliyah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bat banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. So you're going to see, I'm rolling it for a moment because what I realized at the very beginning of this service is we had a bat mitzvah rehearsal this week, and I forgot to roll it back. Luckily, it's only 1 week ahead, so that makes things a little bit easier for us. Let's see, we're getting there. Almost. There we go. V'ata tetzaveh et b'nei Yisrael v'yikhu elecha shemen zayit zach matit lama'or laha'alot ner tamid be'ohel moed michutz lakaporet asher al ha'idut yarecha ito aharon uvanav me'erev ad boker lifnei Adonai hukat olam lidorotam me'at b'nei Yisrael.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. While we have the Torah out in our midst, we take time in our service to think about those in our community who are ill and in need of healing. This evening, we think of Elwood Frederick Bryan, Kristen Nystro, Jim Hines, Richard Vane, Arthur Lang, Heather Borzak, Franny Ein, Kathy Minardi, Karen Mullenkoski, Dick McLean, Quincy Newman, Brooke Ann Godesman, Bridget Stern, Jim Berry, Rusty Taylor, Kurt Johnson, Avraham Ben Natan Vasara, Ashley Sloan, Gary Tatiner, Mark Zellman, Cheryl Hildebrand, Lila Warshawski, Cheryl Ball, John Eulenberg, Evan Georgie, Rhonda Rhodes, David Menikoff, Stacia Thaman, Carol Pretmar, Robin Channon, Joy Rosenthal, Alice Agris, Rabbi Bruce Goldwasser, Richard Vane, Rabbi Fred Wenger, and all who suffer whom we know not by name. Mi sheberach avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov, ve'imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah, hu yivarech v'yiraped kol cholei Yisrael, ve'yishlach lahem bimhera refuah shlema, refuat hanefesh u'refuat haguf, v'nomar, Amen. May God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal all who are stricken. May the Holy One of Praise mercifully restore them to health and to vigor. May God grant them health of body, health of spirit, health of mind, and let us say, Amen. We continue now singing Misha Berach on page 253. Ya'amod Yaakov ben Avraham Vasara Hagba, Ta'amod Miriam bat Moshe Galila. We rise now as we lift and dress the Torah. V'zot ha'Torah asher ksar Moshe livnei v'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai ve'gan Moshe. Please be seated. It is my pleasure now to invite up Bonnie Warner to lead us in the prayer for the country. It can be found on page 258.
O guardian of life and liberty,
May our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen.
It's my pleasure to invite up Jacob Spinadel to lead us in our prayer for Israel on page 259.
Shabbat Shalom. When there was clear and spared the opponent which because of 2016, this is the time of my prayer of Israel. So, wonderfully one, protect or Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel with marks of dawning of hope for all who seek peace, shield it beneath the wings of love, spread over it for the company of peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead the device, guiding them with your good counsel, establish peace and land, fullness of joy for all who do will do. When we all say,
We rise now as we return the Torah to the Ark. Please be seated.
Shabbat Shalom. My name is Marla Gerard, and I'm the chair of the Social Action Committee at Etz Chaim. Before I introduce our guest speaker tonight, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Bridge Communities and our relationship with them. The mission of Bridge Communities is to transition homeless families to self-sufficiency by working with partners to provide mentoring, housing, and supportive services. In the spring of 2021, Etz Chaim received an anonymous gift to support a 2-year partnership with Bridge Communities. We then reached out to our congregation to find volunteer mentors who would provide the caring and encouragement necessary to foster the personal and economic growth that client families need to achieve and sustain self-sufficiency. Mentors were chosen, and our congregation was matched with a needy family in the early fall. We were thrilled to have this wonderful relationship and opportunity to enhance our tradition of Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. Now, I'd like to introduce Karen Wells. Karen Wells has over 30 years of corporate, entrepreneurial, and nonprofit leadership experience. In June of 2020, she became the CEO of Bridge Communities, the largest provider of transitional housing for families experiencing homelessness in DuPage County. She is committed to helping the underserved in the community and in the workplace, utilizing her unique leadership experiences built on her survival of childhood poverty, being a first-generation college grad, and her faith. Karen has held many leadership positions at McDonald's, has owned and operated a family franchise business, and is president and CEO of AIW, a consulting boutique. Karen has a BSBA in marketing from Xavier University and an MBA from Meredith College. I've tried to summarize Karen's huge list of accomplishments because I'm sure everyone would rather hear Karen speak than me. So please welcome Karen Wells.
Good evening, everyone. Shabbat shalom. I'm a quick learner. I am so honored to be here tonight. It was such a beautiful service, so I appreciate the invitation. Larry called me back, in December, and left me a message and invited me to come and share a little bit about Bridge. And so I was very excited because I took the role in the middle of the pandemic. So this is my first speech to a congregation since I took over the role in June 2020, and we're normally out there a lot. And so I'm excited to have with me today, and I'll share that story with Larry, our Associate Director of Program Partnerships, Marty Deuter. She's going to be leading the relationship with you and stewarding the relationship with you, but we're all going to do it together. But anyway, Larry called me back then, and he said, I'd like you to come out and speak to the congregation. And I said, it would be my pleasure. He said, in our Shabbat service. I said, okay. I didn't know much about it. I've researched it, though. I'm very familiar now. And he said, in essence, you'll be delivering the message. And I said, what? So if that's the case, because I feel like there's been a lot of beautiful messages already delivered before I stood up here, so I got a little bit of relief from that. I want to manage your expectations from the beginning. There will be no messages delivered, but I do want to share with you the story of Bridge. Marla did a nice job of really telling a lot about Bridge communities, but I want to start, from the beginning. About 34 years ago, our founder, Mark Milligan and Bob Walgren has since passed away, they were volunteering at a homeless shelter in Glen Ellen. And they did this on a regular basis with their church group. And on this particular night, 34 years ago, as they were volunteering, they could not believe how many children were in a shelter overnight. And seeing all the moms, and if anyone knows how most shelters work, they're very different now because they're in hotel rooms versus in large communities. But back then, you would come in and have a place to stay overnight, and then in the morning, you got to get up, go find something to do all day, and then get back in line to have shelter during the next night. Imagine doing that with 2 or 3 children. It really broke their hearts. And so they went in the basement of their homes and decided we want to do something about it. And so they partnered with their church, and they sponsored one apartment. And that one apartment the church sponsored, Mark and Bob went out into the community to find support for that family. And so the family went from one night of housing, or shelter, I wouldn't call it housing, to 90 days in what was then called the Apartment Project. And the goal in those 90 days was to help that family get a housing voucher, which if anyone knows about that, it takes years to get now, not 90 days. And once they received the housing voucher, the family was then on their way to self-sufficiency. That was 34 years ago. Fast forward to today, Bridge Communities now has 154 apartments. We are the largest provider of transitional housing for families facing homelessness in DuPage County. We are in 6 communities here in the western suburbs. Mark and Bob and the team were very strategic in making sure that the apartment buildings that we purchased were in communities where families could thrive and had the best school, the best resources, best hospitals, etc., so the family would be self-sufficient. Back then it was Mark sitting down at the table with a family, and now it's you helping the family shoulder to shoulder. And I have to say a special thank you to Larry, who called me and said he'd be watching out in virtual land. So I don't know where the cameras are, but hi, Larry. And a special thanks
thanks to Larry, to the Social Action Committee, to mentors Kathy and Bob. Are you in the house today? They're not here, but if you're in virtual land, hello to you. We couldn't do it without you. Let me tell you a little bit about the heart and soul of Bridge. At the center of what we do is this unique model that I have, scoured the U.S. to see who we could benchmark with. I'm from a corporate background, so I want to go learn from someone else, and can we do something better and different to serve families even better moving forward? And what I found very quickly, that there aren't a lot of models that are as special as Bridge communities. And at the center of what we do is partner with congregations like yours. There are about 28 other congregations that we partner with here in DuPage County. And you're very gracious to provide a program partner fee to help offset the cost. It actually pays for about 40% of what it takes to serve a family on an annual basis. And we fundraise for the rest of that, very hard, with our development team. And then our program partners are the ones that are the heart and soul of what we do. Because while we provide amazing wraparound services, which I'll tell you about in a minute, it's our program partners and mentors that are face-to-face and shoulder-to-shoulder with families every single week for 2 years. Volunteers like Kathy and Bob, who are going to do this for 2 years and get paid not 1 red cent to sit with the families and help them on the discovery and on the road to self-sufficiency. And many times, as we've seen in our history, that it's that mentor relationship that is the most important and the strongest relationship that our families have ever had in their journey. It is the support system that they've never had before. And so these relationships become so paramount and so life-changing for the families that we serve. And so with the mentor relationship, we have the Bridge community staff that provide wraparound services for the family in terms of children's services. Many of the families come into the program without child care. Many families have children now, particularly after pandemic, that are struggling from a mental health standpoint. Many of the families that come into the program really need to get settled with their children and get their children okay. And so our children's services team works shoulder to shoulder with all of the families as well. We have employment services. Just the other day, we heard a story of a young lady who came into the program and went through our employment services, one of our classes that we have, our 4-week class. And she was able to sit down with her employer and ask for a higher paying position, something she would have never thought to do. She didn't threaten the employer, but she did say, I have options. And so she went out and she put her resume out there. And sure enough, this particular client, with the help of her mentors and our employment services team, got an offer from another company. And the company that she was in offered her more money and a better position, which would have never happened before then. And it's really the heart of building confidence with really the moms. 90% of the families we serve are single moms. And so it's just a remarkable thing to see. We have a car donation program that support families because many can't get work if you don't have transportation. If you have a car to donate, shameless plug, we will take it. And we also have case management services and nutrition services. I got to tell you, anything that mom and dad needs, we want to be there to provide it and help the mentors as they work with this family. Another really important point is that we have 154 apartments, so stable housing is definitely one of the main things that we do in addition to the wraparound services. But what makes us unique is that families live in our apartments rent-free and utility-free for 2 years. I just want you to think about that for a moment. Think about how much money can be saved if you don't have to pay a mortgage payment or a rent payment. And so all of those funds go into helping mom, and sometimes mom and dad, get restabilized. So eliminating debt, improving credit scores, saving. Our families leave the Bridge program with more savings than the average American once they leave the program after 2 years. It is really something very remarkable to see. And so in our history, we've learned very quickly that what we want to do is work with local communities to serve families. I want to dispel some of the myths. Some people think, homeless families or homeless moms and dads aren't working. A majority of the families we serve come in employed. But the number one reason for homelessness across the U.S. is the lack of affordable housing. It's not because families aren't working. There's just no housing that's affordable based on wages of the families. And so the families come in working, and our goal is to help them get to an even better level of employment so that they can live a life of self-sufficiency. I'd like to share a few statistics with you. I only have 10 to 12 minutes, I heard, and I don't even know how much time I have left, but let me just share this. When families come into the Bridge program, we have a very robust data and evaluation function because we really want to know what impact are we making and how can we do it even better in the future. The average income after families in the program after 2 years working with our partners and mentors increased by 41%, or $10,000. Average savings, families come in with less than $1,000 in the bank, and they leave with $17,000. We've had families leave with $60,000. We had one young lady left with $80,000. And I will tell you that the vigor and the courage and the resilience of the families and the moms and dads we serve are nothing short than admirable. Credit scores improve nearly 100 points while they're in the program, from 578 to 670. And our goal is to always have families leaving in the 600s because that's exactly what they need to get a good apartment and get it at a good rate, or buy a home, which some families do. And consumer debt is reduced by 75% while they're in the program. And so I want to share with you today in this wonderful congregation the amazing work that you're doing and the impact that you are making in the lives of the families that we serve, in the lives of Ashley and her 2 children in particular that's being served by your congregation. It's nothing short of phenomenal, and we can't do it without you. As you heard in my bio, I was one of those families. My mom was a single mom, survivor of domestic violence, as is about half of the families that we served. We grew up in rural North Carolina. She had an 8th grade education. She did the best she could. She was a seamstress. She worked at a sewing plant, and she made the equivalent of about $11 an hour. Now, that seems like that can be okay. It really isn't okay. Back then, it was like $1.75 in the 70s, if you can imagine that. But my mom was the single mom of 9 children, 3 sets of twins. I'm a twin, and we're the youngest set of twins. And 7 of us were in the home at the same time. The truth of the matter is there's no apartment big enough at Bridge that could have served us back then. But I sure wish there was a Bridge Communities because we like many of our families, were homeless. But our homeless looked very different than what you would think. We weren't out on the street, but homelessness really is a form of homelessness that we see with a lot of our families is what we call doubling up. When you're staying with friends or you're staying with family, you're sleeping on the floor, you're sleeping in an extra bedroom. And we did that often. Frankly, I didn't even know that was homeless. I just thought, things got tough and we had to leave. And I stood on the shoulders of many people, and I had many, many guardian angels that took me through in my faith to a better place. And my mom will always be what I call my shiro. And that's the case for many of the moms that we have in our program. I'm happy to report that we're planning to grow our program. We think that there is a need to help families. They're coming in with a lot more challenges than we've seen in the past, and so we're testing something called a stability program where mom can stay with Bridge Communities for a year and then transition for another 2 years into the transitional housing program. And if she's working on a degree or a certification, she can go into our Pathways program. So we now have the continuum of care for a family, for that family to be successful. I'll end with this. Marla asked me, did I have any written comments that I could give her in advance? And these were these notes, so I didn't have anything formal. But about a year ago, and I learned a lot in researching what is so critical here in your congregation about that everyone has a responsibility to help those that are suffering from poverty. And I know the meaning of Etz Chaim is the tree of life, and this moment of time of Shabbat to really reflect and be grateful on what things that's happened in your life. I'll leave you with a summary of my reflection. I was asked about a year ago to how does Bridge Communities intersect with social justice? And we had never been asked that before. And we had to apply for a grant, and I gave it a whole lot of thought. I first looked up the definitions of social justice, and it's the closing of the gap on the opportunity to succeed and access that may have not otherwise happened. Historically and in theory, the idea of social justice is that all people should have equal access to wealth, health, well-being, justice, privileges, and opportunity, regardless of their legal, political, economic, or other circumstances. And economic justice means that every citizen should get the opportunity to earn a livelihood. So I jotted down my thoughts and I reconciled the very definition of this topic and the work that Bridge has done for now over 30 years. And at the nucleus of my thoughts was something Mark Milligan shared with me, the co-founder, on one of the many conversations that we had over the past 18 months. And he said, you know, Karen, at the heart of what we do at Bridge is provide a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a family facing homelessness. And building on that foundation after much thought, I jotted this down about the mission of Bridge and its intersection with social and economic justice. And this is what I said. Since its beginning over 30 years ago, Bridge Communities has had at the center of its mission the goal of creating equitable opportunities and the outcomes for families facing homelessness that we serve, a majority of which are in fact people of color. In doing so, staff and volunteers work shoulder to shoulder with families focused on the outcome of helping to close the gap and increase the opportunity for self-sufficiency. How we serve families at Bridge is the epitome of social and economic justice defined, and it has been and is at the heart of what Bridge Communities has always done, one family at a time. And now, 34 years later, over 900 families served. And realizing that social justice encompasses economic justice, Bridge moves towards that cause by providing critical employment services to families to help them prepare, train, build confidence, and get ahead to improve their economic means while in our program. In other words, to earn a livelihood. The Bridge program provides a stable and safe home, rent and utility free for an average of 2 years, creating the very unique opportunity for families to eliminate debt, to save for the future, thus allowing families to stabilize in housing, improve living, and in some cases, the ability to purchase a home after the 2-year program. In addition, Bridge Communities also provides wraparound services to provide additional support for families, including case management, continuous access to food and basic services, car donation program, mental health counseling, higher education funding for adults, and programs for children to help them be successful from pre-K to college. All efforts focused on closing the gap on the opportunity to succeed and access they may not have otherwise happened. The Bridge Community Program helps families move from behind to even, to ultimately to move ahead and live a better, richer, fuller, and more stable life. You are making it happen. You are amazing. Thank you for what you're doing. We literally cannot do it without you. I'm honored to serve with you, and I will be here after service if you have any questions. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. My name is Joel Spenadel, and I'm pleased to be here representing the Board of Directors tonight. I want to thank everyone who has joined us for tonight's Social Action Shabbat service, and I'd like to welcome our guests from St. Matthew's United Church of Christ in Wheaton. Just a few announcements, but before I do, I just want to say to Karen, thank you for sharing your inspiring story with us. We're really pleased you're here. and the incredible work that Bridge Communities is doing. We're just glad Etzheim can be a part of that. Thank you. Beginning on Monday, February 28th at 7 p.m., Rabbi Hannah Estrin will be teaching a 6-week course on interfaith couples via Zoom. Join her for an exploration of many foundational Jewish ideas on ethics, community, faith, and practices as they relate to Jewish identity. Individuals as well as couples are welcome to participate. On Saturday, March 5th, Uli Widmeyer will be having a fundraising recital at Congregation Etzheim for the People's Music School. You can watch in person or live stream 1 week prior at 7:30. He will have a virtual lecture on the music he will be playing on the 5th. Now, save the date for our congregational retreat to us, Rui, from April 1 to 3, and if I do the math, I'm the treasurer, I should be able to do math, 49 days till the retreat. Join us in Economack, Wisconsin for a weekend of celebrating our superheroes. Learn about Jewish superheroes of song, comedy, food, Torah, art, literature, history, and our own superheroes at Etzheim. Thank you to Rabbi Weiner for leading us in our service, and to Jason Hill for providing the music, to Kenya Madison Gabler for ushering, and to Rachel Wood for being our greeter and docent tonight, and 10,000 other jobs she does for us. Next Friday night, February 18th, our Shabbat service will begin at 7:30. Shabbat Shalom.
We begin to conclude our service now on page 282 for Aleinu. It's my pleasure to invite up Charlie and Ethan Sherman to help us open the ark. Please rise. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, velo asamanu k'mishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, livnei melech, malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Please be seated. On page 287. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yehi Adonai echad u'shemo echad. We think now of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who have died in this season and in years past. And this week, we remember Saul Kaplan, grandfather of Robin Dombeck, Ben Margolis, uncle of Larry Margolis and Nancy Madrill, Leah Grace Margolis, mother of Larry Margolis and Nancy Madrill, Jenny B. Mandel, grandmother of Craig Mandel, Jim Mann, father of Barbara Sfars, Libby Weinstein, grandmother of Diane Kleiber, Tobias Blaustein, father of Eric Blaustein, Joseph Cohen, father of Marcia Gibson, Albert Kaplan, grandfather of Andrea Alterman Lax, Nancy Rovell, aunt of Merrill Ehrlich, Daniel H. Stern, father of Alex Stern, Ramona K. Stewart, mother of Ann Stewart, Robert A. Stewart, brother of Ann Stewart, Janie Weisenberg, mother of Laura Piacek, David Balin, father of Stuart Balin, Rose Goldman, grandmother of Lynn Sullivan, Robert Stoddard, father of Rebecca Berman, Robert Stoddard Jr., brother of Rebecca Berman, Beverly Bobb, mother of Lorna Helgeland, Audrey Elrod Lakin, cousin of Terry Shapiro, Betty Novak, aunt of Scott Burstein, Bobby Rosengarten, cousin of Scott Burstein, Lauren Johnson, grandmother of Nancy Fain and great-grandmother of Jacqueline Fain, Henry Wolf, father of Ursula Ulrich, Marco Uraga, father of Dubravka Uraga, Stanley Lampert, grandfather of Amanda Littauer, Catherine Longman, daughter of Douglas and Linda Longman, Diane Spanger, aunt of Denise Niedermeyer, Agnes Dustin, mother of Janet Gannett, Sylvia Kaplan, aunt of Marcia Kaplan, and we mourn the recent passing of Gordon Edward Murphy, father of Rebecca Cinnamon Murphy. We join together on page 294 for the Mourner's Kaddish. Please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyamechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei dekudesha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Zichronam livracha, may all of their memories truly be for a blessing. Please be seated. We conclude our service now with words that are infamous words for the social justice work that we do. These words come from Pirkei Avot, from the ethics of our generations. And the words in English are, "It is not our duty to complete the work, but neither are we free to desist from it." And that is truly the case. We continue to do this work. A shameless plug, you know that we do this amazing work with Bridge Communities. We work with DuPage United. We, in addition to that, also work with RAC, the RAC Illinois, which is the Religious Action Center, the Reform Movement's social justice wing branch. And this year, the legislation that they're focusing on is, there's a bill coming up in the Assembly to eradicate discrimination around in housing around income, the type of income that people get. So if that is something that you are interested in, please let me know, because that work and that bill is certainly very important to what we are doing. So with that, we continue on page 341 with the words of Lo Alecha. Lo Alecha Hamlacha. Together, if I can find them, and Kiddush and Motzi, You all saw that we have, it's a make-your-own to-go nag bag tonight, so you can take what you would like afterwards. But let's join together in Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon. May each of us, as we go out this Shabbat, feel and find the place where our work is not yet done and seek out to go and do that work. Shabbat Shalom.
Just so you know, because my teacher was from my community also.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I guess you didn't know this, but my teacher's name is Mr. Rose. David Kenneth Rose. My teacher I had.
Yeah.
Just back in 2019.
Uh-huh.
He's from my community since back in New York,
Wow.
2 years ago.
Wow, oh my goodness.
Yeah, we have him until the day was on Zoom. So
Yeah?
we just honor his memories belongs to you guys. So
Oh, no.
that's why they put that on. That's why they put that on our book like you guys. So you guys didn't know that.
Yeah, well, thank you for letting me know that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and you did a really great job reading tonight. Thank you.
You're
We'll
welcome.
have you do that again.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Good job.